Yeah, we already back with it. Goku and DC season 4 episode 21, and I lied by the way because this ain't gonna be the last episode for this season. It didn't work out that way, but anyway, this is season 4 episode 21. Piccolo arrives to help Superman, and let's go ahead and get into it. Shout out to the members, of course, as always. Jason 57835, John Lane 2016, OD Demon Wolf 34, and Quade Moke. Once again, as I always say, you guys, the members help me make better and better content for you people to watch. Anyway, let's get into it. The portal didn't spit them out so much as it unraveled them. One moment, Goku could feel Beast Boy's shoulder brushing against his own, a solid grounding presence in the chaos of swirling violet and black, and then the next, that presence was gone and replaced by an infinite, yawning emptiness that stretched in every direction. Goku spun, his senses flaring outward, searching for the familiar green spark of his friend's energy. Nothing, just the oppressive weight of a void that seemed to press against his very soul. Beast Boy. His voice didn't echo. It simply vanished, swallowed by the silence like a stone dropped into an abyss. An endless abyss at that. The darkness shifted around him, coalescing into shapes that hovered at the edge of perception. Faces he almost recognized, places he'd almost been, moments that had it almost broken him. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and blood, of distant screams and regrets. Goku's fist clenched, his aura flickering to life around him, a defiant blue candle in a universe of shadows. Illusions, he reminded himself. Constantine said they were illusions. But knowing that and believing it were two different things. And when the darkness began to whisper his failures in the voices of those he'd failed to save, it began to start its toll. The rain continued to fall in sheets, meanwhile, hissing against Trigon's smoldering flesh. His massive hands remained clamped over his ears for quite a moment. Not from genuine injury per se, but from the unfamiliar sensation of this high frequency, and it caused annoyance. The tiny blonde creature had produced a sound that actually registered. How quaint. He lowered his hand slowly, his four burning eyes sweeping down to locate the speck that had dared to sting him. Black Canary stood on the flooded street below, Batman's arm still around her waist, both of them drenched and defiant. The amplifier at her throat still crackled with residual energy. Trigon's chuckle rode across the battlefield, a low rumbling sound that held no humor, only the cold amusement of a being who had witnessed the death of countless civilizations. His voice, when it came, vibrated through the rain itself. I must admit, he intoned, each word a hammer blow against the storm. That was a rather impressive death rattle for a little songbird. His massive head tilted, the four eyes of crimson energy framing his face like a demonic crown. Many have faced me with swords and spells, with the borrowed power of gods and the desperate prayers of dying worlds, but you chose to scream at me. A pause, heavy with menace. You chose to use sound. I almost respect the audacity of it all. The rain around Canary began to evaporate, turning to steam by the heat radiating from Trigon's focused gaze. Almost. Superman touched down between the gathered heroes, his cape singed, his suit torn at the shoulders, where Trigon's energy had grazed him. His eyes swept across the assembled fighters. Aquaman, with his trident. Black Canary, catching her breath. Batman already pulling up tactical displays on his gauntlet. Status, Superman said, the word clipped but not demanding. Batman didn't look up from his work. Goku and Constantine are inside the barrier. Beast Boy joined them. Their objective is Raven. If they succeed, the portal destabilizes and Trigon's foothold collapses. He finally raised his eyes, meeting Superman's gaze with the cold certainty of a man who had already accepted the worst possible outcomes. Our objective is to hold off the devil until then. Superman's jaw tightened. He looked up at the colossal form of Trigon. Still, reeling slightly from Canary's sonic assault, and measured the distance between hope and extinction. How long you think we need to buy? Batman's answer was immediate, brutal, and honest. As long as Goku needs. No more, no less. He activated the comm system, his voice broadcasting to every hero, still fighting across the ravaged planet. All units. If anyone can hear, this is Batman. Fall back to these coordinates. We're making our stand here. Aquaman raised his trident, the storm answering with a crash of thunder. If we are to fall on this night, then let's give the devil something to remember us by. Batman's words died in his throat as the world around lurched. It wasn't a tremor, it was a convulsion. The scorched earth beneath their feet buckled, like a wounded beast sending jagged fissures racing across the flooded streets in every direction. The rain, moments ago, a strategic asset, became a liability as water cascaded into the widening chasms, dragging debris and shattered asphalt down into darkness as it became slippery. Superman moved on instinct. His arm swept around Black Canary's waist, a heartbeat before the ground beneath her simply ceased to exist, yawning open into a bottomless pit of crimson, lit smoke and grinding stone. He shot upward, clutching her against his chest, clearing the collapsing zone as the street folded inward like a closing fist. Batman had no such luxury, however. The schism opened directly beneath his feet and swallowed him into the darkness before his grapple hook could fire. For reaction, stone and metal scraped against his armored suit as he fell, his fingers finding purchase on a jutting pipe, then a broken beam, then nothing at all. He kicked off a falling slab of concrete, launching himself sideways, and fired his grapple upward on pure instinct. The line caught something somewhere and yanked him out of the collapsing maw. He hit the edge of the fissure hard, rolling across trembling ground. His cape was torn, his gauntlets were sparking, and below him the earth continued to groan and split, as if the planet itself was being torn apart from within. Trigon's laughter rolled across the devastation like funeral bells. Batman pushed himself on shaking arms, his cowl streaked with dust and hydraulic fluid from his damaged gauntlets and all the collapsing machinery that was leaking. The fissure, before he pulled himself out of the hole, the fissure still smoked at his heels, a fresh grave waiting to swallow him. Above, Trigon's massive hand was already descending, not to crush but to pluck. Fingers each the size of a telephone pole reached for the dark night with the casual condescension of a child picking up an insect. Where do you think you're going, Bat? The demon's voice vibrated through the broken ground. The night has always belonged to me. Before the fingers could close, a streak of blonde and green erupted from the rain-swept darkness. Aquaman's trident struck like a divine judgment. The enchanted prong, still humming with the fury of the deep, drove deep into the flesh of Trigon's wrist, not through, but into anchoring there with a wet, meaty thunk that etched across the battlefield. Blackish red ichor sprayed across the rain. Trigon's hand jerked back, not from pain, but from sheer instinctive surprise. And if he was honest, a little pain. Keep your hands off my allies, devil. Aquaman growled, hanging from his embedded trident, his hook arm digging into the demon's flesh for purchase. The surface may be falling, but the seas remember how to fight. Trigon's four eyes narrowed and burned with revenge. For a single crystalline moment, Aquaman hung suspended against the crimson sky, a king defiant, his trident embedded in the flesh of Trigon, his jaw set with the same stubborn resolve that had carried him through trench wars and surface world threats. It was perhaps the bravest gesture any of them had made this far. Trigon's response was irritation, made physical. The demon's massive hand twisted, not with strategy, but with the reflexive annoyance of a man swatting at a mosquito. His open palm caught Aquaman across the entire length of his body. Not a punch, but a shove delivered with enough force to launch a battleship into orbit. The Atlantean king didn't fly so much as he ceased to occupy his previous location. He became a projectile blur that tore through the rain, slicked air, and crashed through the facade of a half-collapsed office building. Stone and glass exploded outward in a cascading shower of debris. The building, already weakened by the earthquake, groaned once, then folded inwards, floors collapsing on the floors, burying Aquaman under a mountain of shattered concrete and twisted metal. Dust billowed across the battlefield. The rain continued to fall, indifferent to the hero buried beneath the ruins. Trigon flexed his wounded wrist, the trident still lodged there like an annoying splinter. He made no move to remove it. Insects, he rumbled, already turning his attention back to the remaining specks below. Always buzzing, until you swat them away. Superman shot upward through the rain-slicked air, his cape streaming behind him like a banner of defiance. Below, Aquaman lay buried beneath tons of rubble. Around him, Batman struggled to his feet, with Canary by his side, the weight of the world pressed against his shoulders. But that was nothing new. He hovered before Trigon's massive face, close enough to see the swirling galaxies of malice in those 4 burning eyes, and then he inhaled. Not a breath, a vacuum. The air for 100 yards rushed towards his lungs, pulling rain, debris, and swirling mist into a spiraling funnel that disappeared between his lips. His chest expanded beyond its normal limits, his cheeks bulging with compressed atmosphere, the temperature around him dropping degrees in instants. Then he exhaled. The Arctic blast that erupted from Superman's lungs was no simple frost breath. It was a blizzard, weaponized, a hurricane of sub-zero fury that caught the falling rain and turned every droplet into a flechette of ice. The white/blue torrent slammed into Trigon's colossal form, spreading across his chest, climbing up his neck, encasing his arms in crystalline armor. The demon's own heat, the infernal furnace of his existence, met the Arctic assault and lost. Steam exploded outward in billowing clouds, but beneath it, ice formed, thick, unyielding, and absolute. Within seconds, Trigon seemed to stand frozen, a demonic statue carved from glacier and nightmare, his 4 eyes locked in an expression of what might have been surprise. Aquaman's summoned rain continued to fall. Each drop was adding another layer to the ice prison. Superman hovered, his breath misting in the sudden cold, and allowed himself a single heartbeat of hope. It worked. And then the ice cracked instantaneously, seemingly. Not along the seams that Superman had expected, but everywhere at once. A spiderweb of fractures that spread across Trigon's frozen form with the speed of lightning. The demon's 4 burning eyes, hidden behind inches of crystalline ice, flared with sudden terrible light. Ruse. It was a ruse. The word slammed into Superman's mind, not as sound, but as understanding. Trigon had allowed the freeze. He had felt the cold closing around him and made a choice to play along. So he dropped his own hot body temperature to let the Kryptonians taste of victory, draw him closer for him to make his move. The ice exploded, not outward, but inwards, shattering into a billion razor-sharp fragments that blasted toward Superman from every direction. At once, he raised his arms to shield his face, but the real attack came from above. A massive hand, freed from its frozen prison, closed around his entire torso in less than a tenth of a second. Fingers like iron girders compressed. Unsuccessful, Trigon rumbled, lifting Superman to eye level, squeezing slowly and deliberately. The Kryptonian's heat vision blazed, cutting grooves into the demon's palm, but Trigon simply tightened his grip. Your ice bath was a temporary inconvenience, a moment's chill before the eternal fire that was to come. As Superman's arms were pinned, the pressure of Trigon's grip was agony. Enough. But then the demon began to pour. It started as a warmth against Superman's skin, a pleasant contrast to the lingering cold of a frost breath. Then the warmth became heat. The heat became fire, and the fire became something far worse, a violation that bypassed flesh entirely and sank its claws directly into his soul. Trigon's magic was not simply some type of energy. It was like presence, like an infinite crushing awareness of every failure, doubt, tragic moment of helplessness that Superman had ever experienced. The screams of Krypton's destruction that he didn't even see echoed in his ears. The people of Metropolis who had died because he couldn't save them in times. This is what I am, Trigon's voice whispered inside his skull. The end of all hope. The silence after every prayer. You are not the first savior I have unmade, little Kryptonian, and you will not be the last. Superman's heat vision sputtered, his arms pinned to his sides as he went numb. For the first time in years, he felt like actual cold, but not physical, a deep existential chill that no amount of sunlight could burn away. And then The sky screamed. A bolt of magic lightning, not white, not gold, but a searing, blinding red, cracked across the already crimson heavens and struck Trigon directly in the face. The demon's head snapped back, his grip loosening involuntarily. Superman dropped, tumbling through the pain-slicked air. He caught himself 20 feet above the flooded street, spinning toward the source of the blast. Piccolo hovered against the bleeding sky, his torn gi whipping in the supernatural wind. Red energy crackled around his form. Not the usual golden lightning of Shazam, but something mixed with Trigon's power, gifted to him by his father. Something inherited. His crimson eyes burned with a fury that had nothing to do with heroism. It was like crimson eyes mixed with a glowing yellow. And it had nothing to do with heroism, but everything to do with vengeance. You aren't the only demon who wants the earth, Piccolo growled, raising his palm toward Trigon's reeling form. Superman shook off the lingering chill of Trigon's psychic assault like a dog shedding water. The whispers of failure, the echoes of Krypton's death, the faces of the fallen, that faded to the background, shoved aside by sheer stubborn will. His solar reserves, dim but not extinguished, flared back to life. He rose through the rain, steadier now, and took his place beside Piccolo in the blood-stained sky. The Namekian didn't glance at him. His crimson eyes remained fixed on Trigon's massive form, but his voice carried clearly through the storm. You know, Piccolo said, the words dripping with familiar annoyance every time this world is on the brink of annihilation. Your idiot brother is nowhere to be found. His jaw tightened. Why is this idiot always late? Superman allowed himself a thin, worried smile. Some things, even apocalypses, didn't change. Actually, he replied, rolling his shoulder where Trigon's grip had left its mark. Goku's inside the barrier. He went to save Raven, to get the key to sending Trigon back where he belongs. Piccolo's antenna twitched. For a fraction of a second, something like grudging respect flickered across his features. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual scowl. About time he did something useful. Below them, the rain continued to fall, hissing against the scorched earth. Ahead, Trigon turned fully toward them, his four burning eyes narrowing with undisguised displeasure. The demon's massive hands flexed at his sides. The trident still lodged in his wrist pulsed with a faint, defiant light. It was like Aquaman's final gift to the fight. You, Trigon rumbled, the word a physical pressure against their chests. His gaze fixed on Piccolo on the red energy still crackling around his form. The son of a demon who fights for the light. What a curious abomination. He took a heavy step forward, the ground shuddering. I will enjoy crushing you the most out of all. Superman and Piccolo exchanged a single glance. Dark warrior to hero of hope. Ally to thorn in the side ally. Then they turned as one, falling into battle stances, side by side against the oncoming darkness. And that will be the end of this episode, man. I hope you guys liked it. Hopefully, my next video that I do on this series will be the end of this season, man. I keep having more things happen. I'm like, I'm going to stretch it out. But hopefully, it will be the last episode, and it'll probably be a long one. Anyways, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.